Good morning you guys and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me for my third video. But before we get into it, I just want to say that I'm really sorry if you have been affected by what's going on in the world right now. It's really scary and it's definitely some very uncertain times, and I really wish that I could help so many people that are affected, but I hope you're trying to stay positive and I'm sure we'll get through this in the end. I did try and look nice on my top half, but my bottom half, I don't know if you can see this, is like pajamas, Ugg boots, the works. So, you know, this working from home thing is getting to me. I'm sure you can tell what this video is about from the title, but in my first video I mentioned that I suffer from endometriosis. What I didn't know when I was diagnosed is how little information there is out there and how people really don't have any idea as to what endometriosis is and to how many people suffer from it. I definitely had no idea the implications that it could have, and I definitely didn't know how many women also suffer from this. Do not want sympathy from this video. I'm not doing it for that purpose. I'm purely doing it because endometriosis affects women in all different ways. It affects me completely differently to how it affects somebody else that has it. So I just thought it would be really interesting to kind of share what my symptoms were and how I was diagnosed, and now after being diagnosed, what it's still like to have it. I'll just get into it. So I wrote some notes, but I'll try not to read all of them because that's a lot. But I think the first topic to probably go through is what endometriosis is. So I got this snippet from Endometriosis Australia, which is a website. So it says endometriosis is present when the tissue that is similar to the lining of the uterus occurs outside this layer and causes pain and/or infertility. The lining layer is called the endometrium, and this is the layer of tissue that is shed each month with menstruation or where a pregnancy settles and grows. I should probably get into my diagnosis story or journey kind of thing now, but pre-warning, it's gonna be TMI. This is endometriosis. There's periods involved. There's a whole world of girly stuff coming. So if you don't want to hear it, maybe don't watch, but I'm trying to keep it real and realistic. And yeah, my story wasn't pretty. It kind of started in grade 7. I was getting sick all the time. It started pretty bad with my nausea, but I was also getting really horrific periods. I was just getting terrible, terrible cramps. I would get my period, I would be on the ground in pain, just crying because it was so bad. When you're a kid, you go, oh, it's your period, it's cramps, and you don't really think anything else of it. I just thought it was normal. I guess after that, my mum was like, well, sure, that's your period, that's kind of normal. But it wasn't normal being nauseous all the time and having a constant stomach ache. My mum and I were going to the GP almost every 2 weeks just to, say that I was still sick and that nothing was working, and they weren't helping at all. I tried different medications and anti-nausea medications and nothing at all helped. It wasn't until I was in grade 8 that a GP actually gave me a referral to go and see a gastroenterologist. I went to my appointment and my mum came with me. And it was pretty good at first. He was asking me real questions and taking it seriously. And then my mum asked if my symptoms could relate to my anxiety and if they could be linked. As soon as she asked that, he said, oh, it's all in her head. That's literally word for word what he said. I was 14 and I was just heartbroken. All I could think is that I'd made it up and no wonder people didn't believe me because everyone just knew that it must have been in my head. I was devastated. I was really embarrassed. After that, I just did everything I could to pretend that I was fine and believe that the symptoms weren't there. And then in grade 9, it got really bad. I missed a lot of school. I just didn't go, and I didn't like school anyway, so everyone just thought I was faking it. I mean, they'd been told it was in my head, so no wonder they didn't really have any other option but to think that. It got to college and I told my mum that I needed to go back and see the gastroenterologist because something wasn't right. This time he was like, okay, we'll do a colonoscopy and gastroscopy. If you don't know what that is, it's where they put a camera down your throat and a camera up the other way and have a good look at your insides and make sure that there's nothing wrong. They ended up just diagnosing me with IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. My stomach was inflamed and so was my bowels, and they just thought that it was because I'd been eating foods that contain gluten. So this was the biggest relief of my life. I was like, I've been diagnosed, I have an answer. This is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I could leave and I could tell people that, yeah, I've got IBS. I'm not just that kid that's always sick. It's not in my head anymore. But nothing was working. I was still so sick. There were days where I couldn't get out of bed. I was in so much pain. Like, I was 17 and some days I looked like I was 9 months pregnant. Like, I was so bloated. And that's just, it's not normal. Whilst being at school, I knew how badly being sick had affected me because of how much school I missed. And I kind of thought that when I left, being sick wasn't going to affect my life as much anymore. Until I started working, I was missing shift after shift, and I was absolutely mortified. If you know me, you know that I absolutely hate more than anything in the world to think that I've let someone down. You can't call your boss and say, I'm so sorry, I'm so bloated, I can't stand up, so I can't come into work today. Like, that sounds like a lie. Since being with Ben, we have been to a lot of doctors. We've seen a lot of different doctors, a lot of different type of doctors, a lot of GPs. I've had a lot of x-rays, a lot of blood tests, you name it, I've probably had it the last 2 years. But after doing so many tests and so many x-rays and talking to so many people who just had no idea how they could help me, I couldn't help but just start to give up. Like, I was over it. I was like, you know what? I will fix myself to the best that I can, to a point where I can live comfortably and in a less amount of pain. And then Ben and I went to Hawaii in July of 2019. And whilst we were there, we experienced something that was quite sad and definitely unexpected. And as soon as that happened, I just became determined. I booked a doctor's appointment whilst we were in Melbourne Airport, ready to come home. I hadn't seen this GP before, but she was really refreshing. She asked me a lot of really valid questions and took everything I said seriously. By the end of the conversation, she had made the decision for me to go and see a gynecologist. No one in the 7 years that I have had these pains has ever suggested going to a gynecologist. My gynecologist appointment went pretty well. I was only in the room for about 5 minutes before she determined that she wanted to do a laparoscopy. The word endometriosis was thrown into the air. She thought it was definitely possible that I had it. When she said this, I had never even heard of endometriosis. So leaving the appointment, I tried my best to do as much research as I could. But for those people who have endometriosis, you would know that the research out there is limited. The surgery didn't really go as planned. So I was meant to be under anaesthetic for between 20 to 30 minutes, and I ended up being under for about 2.5 hours. I remember waking up just feeling super drowsy and uncomfortable and pretty nauseous, which is expected for me, but just not what you want to feel when you wake up and can barely keep your eyes open. My follow-up gyno appointment was kind of weird. It was very quick. I was told the same thing, that they had removed as much endometriosis as they could, and that it would be very hard for me to fall pregnant. That was kind of the one thing that I didn't want to hear in this whole situation. I've got endometriosis. I barely know what it means. There's nothing now that can help me, and I might not be able to fall pregnant. This is a disaster. I think a big misconception of endometriosis is that once you have an excision surgery, your pain will predominantly go and you won't suffer from the symptoms anymore. That can be true, and I think it's probably one thing that a lot of people who suffer with it hope for. You know, like, you don't want to have a surgery to come out of it and still feel the pain. Since my surgery, I have had probably worse pain than before. I've been in hospital twice. I now have pockets of internal bleeding. I'm not really sure how to explain how that has come about because I haven't had it explained to me yet. I think my least favourite question in the whole world is when people ask me how I am, because I hate either answer. I hate lying and saying that I'm fine, and I hate telling people the truth and watching them feel uncomfortable and not know how to answer it. I know how boring it must be for people to ask me how I am and to hear that I don't feel well all the time. Like, that's so boring. But I can promise you 100% that to live a life feeling like this is 10 times more boring than it would be for you to hear it. I just want to get to a stage where living like this is bearable. I don't want to be in chronic pain every day, and I know that every other person with endo feels like that as well. What I would love from this video is that if you are watching and you suffer from endometriosis, I would love to hear from you. I just want the people who suffer from endometriosis to know that they're never alone. 1 in 10 women suffer from endometriosis, and I am sure that if you took a look around, you would know someone that has it. I just really hope that you offer them some kindness. If you want to know more about endometriosis, there are plenty of websites that you can go to that has a lot of information. Endometriosis Australia is where I got my facts from today. Thank you very much for watching this video. This was one that's very close to my heart, and as you can see, it was not easy to talk about. I hope that you have the most beautiful day whenever you might be watching this. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.